Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to Radio Works World. My name is Jill Barham, the Miracle Molecule host, and today we're having a light-hearted conversation with my very special guest, Rachel Elnaugh. Hello, Rachel.
Hi, Jill. Hello.
How are you?
Yes, good. Thank you for inviting me on your new show.
You're very welcome. We're running a little bit late today, just some technical issues, but we're hoping that everybody's logged in to hear our light-hearted conversation. Thank you very much for being patient.
So I've set up in this is my little kind of bedroom wing near the garden, so hence why I've got this sort of colourful backdrop. But I thought I would move out of my office as it's sort of late in the day.
Yes, and also we're having a light-hearted conversation. So before we get going, what I'd like you to do is, just because I know who you are, obviously, I'd like you just to share with everybody on the call or when everybody listens back who you are, what you do, what you're passionate about.
Well, I would call myself an evolutionary entrepreneur, if that doesn't sound too grand. I started out, my first business was called Red Letter Days, which I grew from nothing into a multi-million turnover business, which got me on Dragon's Den. So I was on the first 2 series of Dragon's Den. I then lost Red Letter Days in a huge blaze of publicity, and it led me on a kind of journey of discovery and transformation, and a sort of opening into the whole world of metaphysics and transformational coaching. And I now run a company called SourceTV, which is a digital publishing platform and marketing portal for thought leaders like yourself, Jill. And yeah, so a bit like Radio Works, actually. I know Marina through you, and really it's just a way to help energize people who are doing amazing work in the world. So yes. So here we are in this kind of mirror situation.
Yes, well, it's all about collaboration, basically, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely. Okay, well, today we're not really here to talk about the business side of things. We're here to talk about Rachel. We're here to look at the person behind the business, just to help people get to know a little bit about you. Because we all know that people will connect with you and want to work with you, and will be more open to what you have to share with them if they know you a little bit more. Would you agree?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So I've got some questions for you, and just to tell everybody that Rachel has no clue what I'm going to ask her at all. She's looking slightly nervous, but I'm sure it'll be fine. I'll look after you. Okay, so my first question. I've taken you to a hotel and you've gone into the lift and you're going up to the penthouse suite, because why wouldn't you? And one other person gets in the lift on the 3rd floor, but then the lift breaks down between 2 floors, between the 6th and 7th floor. Now, you're in a glass lift, so you're not claustrophobic because you can see the world. What I'd like to know is, if you had anybody that you could choose in the world, who would be that person, that one person that you would be stuck in a lift with, and you've got a couple of hours to spend with, to ask all the questions that you would need to ask? Who would you love to meet, alive or dead?
That's an interesting question. I'm really hesitating about answering that question. I think it would have to be, I would choose Steve Jobs.
Ah, how interesting.
Actually, yes. I had to think about that one.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would choose Steve Jobs for sure.
And why would that be? Because he's very much from industry and IT and sort of kind of your old life, I would have said, rather than your new one, in a way.
Well, Steve Jobs is part of my spiritual mastermind group. So I call him in every morning.
Ah.
And to me, the thing is, I feel in a very micro way, I have a very similar parallel journey to him, because he obviously built Apple, and then he kind of lost Apple, and was expelled banished from the kingdom that he created, and then obviously went out, and he was very involved in the world of metaphysics and transcendental meditation. And when he came back to Apple, completely transformed it. And I have no doubt that he was channeling light beings and all sorts of incredible stuff. And so he essentially created Apple from kind of being connected to source, actually. So I find him very interesting for that reason, because he's someone who bridged the two worlds of business, you know. So sorry we've got back onto business, but
No,
this
that's
is the thing for me, Jill. I mean, I don't actually, you say, oh, let's talk about the real Rachel, not the businesswoman, but for me there is no difference. I don't have this, you know, people talk about this life work divide. I mean, to me it is just my whole life. And I run a business which is about my passion. So I don't ever feel like I'm at work or not at work, or I mean, is this work or is this fun? Who can say? It's just like I tend to say yes and just go with the flow of what presents.
Yes, and I agree with you. When I never feel that I'm at work either, but it's not very often that we can actually give a little bit of ourselves away, is it? To our potential clients, or just to the universe, really. We very often don't get that opportunity.
Oh, I mean, this is me. I'm like a stick of rock. You know?
You're very open
the whole time. Like wherever, like Facebook live streams, you get the whole of me. And I just remember when I first started doing social media, I had a PR woman, and she was looking at my Twitter timeline. I used to do Twitter in those days, and she just said to me, Rachel, you can't say this on Twitter. What about your corporate face, you know? And I'm like, but this is like me. I can't be two different people, like a public face and a private face. I mean, there is just one person. You kind of, so it's, yes, interesting.
It is really interesting, and of course, Rachel, I've been working with for a few months now, and that, you know, that's probably one of the reasons why I wanted to do this, is because we don't meet many people that are like that, but also there is a journey that perhaps we don't know, that we're going to share a little bit of today, that will help people to understand perhaps why you're in the place that you are in now.
Okay.
And we're not going to talk too much about it, because I've just got little odd questions that will pick out kind of key points maybe. But let's go back to the lift, the elevator. And in the elevator you have Steve Jobs, and I'm providing you with a lovely table with a beautiful tablecloth and cutlery and crockery and glassware. And like Harry Potter, I know you have children, so like Harry Potter, we're going to magic up a fantastic meal for you. So what would you and Steve Jobs be sharing?
What would we be sharing? Definitely something involving avocado. I love avocado. I probably actually have. I mean, I'm mainly vegetarian, but I'm kind of pescatarian. So I would probably have something like crayfish or lobster or something, or salmon mousse with avocado, or crab and avocado mousse, or something like that. That would be my dream food.
And do you think Mr. Jobs would appreciate that?
I think he was a vegetarian towards the end, wasn't he? So yes.
Yeah, I think he was.
Yes. I think actually, didn't he eat raw food towards the end? I haven't actually read the biography of him.
Well, I saw the film just about 2 months ago, actually, funnily enough. It's funny that you brought it up. They didn't bring out so much of the metaphysical stuff and the spiritual stuff, sadly, but it was very clear that he left the building and came back into the building as a different person. But there was a big reference even before he left that he just ate raw food. I do remember that.
Yeah, I think he did.
Yeah,
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so we've got our lovely meal. Now I'm going to take you back to the 18-year-old Rachel now. So what was the 18-year-old Rachel doing? Where was she living? Who was she with? What was she doing? What was going on at 18?
Well, at 18, I was still living above my dad's shop. That was my home. So I grew up above my dad's business. And I just started working as an office junior in a local firm of accountants. That was my first job, just like filing and making coffee.
Mm-hmm.
And it was so exciting to be in the world of work, really. And yeah, so it was just a very lowly start. I hardly paid any money at all. And
were you still living with your brothers? Because you have 4 brothers, don't you?
Yes,
4 brothers.
I have 4 brothers. So my elder 2 brothers by that point had, I think, moved out. So perhaps even all 3 of my elder brothers had moved out, and my younger brother was brought up by my grandparents. He didn't actually live with us, because I think by then my mum was, and the house wasn't big enough, and he was sort of brought up by my grandparents. So maybe I was the only one left at home by that point. Yeah. So
that would have been a very different dynamic for you, having had all this male stuff going on for so many years.
Yes, but I actually left. I became very independent very quickly, and I left home and set up my own flat. And then I spent a couple of years doing that little office junior job and worked my way up. And then I moved to London. And that was when my life truly started to blossom, because I'd come from Essex, you know, and just was very parochial, you know, and suddenly went up to London. And this was back in the 1980s. So Thatcherism was just coming through, and it was the yuppie era, and everything was champagne and money. And I went to work in the city, and just kind of got swept into this amazingly exciting world of business and flow, and really got on the career ladder. And it was a very exciting time, actually, to be a young career woman in the city of London back in the Thatcher years. Really was. And
you were very successful at a very young age, weren't you? Relatively young age.
Well, yeah, because
with Red Letter Days.
Well, I didn't start Red Letter Days till I was 24. So I spent my first kind of 6-7 years in accountancy, working my way up.
Yeah.
And I was actually quite high flying in my career. But I just got to a point when I was 24 where I kind of knew that accountancy wasn't the career for me, even though I was on an amazing career trajectory. And I was by then working for the biggest firm in the world at the time, Arthur Andersen. But I had a portfolio full of entrepreneurs like Terence Conran and Anna Vinton, who created the Reject Shop. And I kind of, in my heart, I knew I wanted to do a business. So I kind of left that company, went traveling for 6 months across America, just hired a car in New York and drove to Los Angeles. And when I got back, that's when I set up the business. Yeah.
And was the business because you'd seen things in America? Had you experienced those days? Because Red Letter Days was all about experiences, wasn't it? Was that influenced by the trips that you had in America, that business?
Not really. It was just more the case that I kind of thought now's the time to go into business, because obviously I'd grown up above my dad's shop, and I'd been specializing in the taxation of entrepreneurs. So I kind of knew that's what I wanted to do, but I didn't have a business idea. So what actually happened when I got back to London, and I pretty much spent all my money by that point, you know, traveling. So I just got a freelancing job in a little firm, you know, just a freelancing tax person. And one of the clients that I was working on was a strange little company that did experience cards. Like, they were actually quite horribly designed, and the company wasn't really profitable. And it, you know, so I was actually working on its tax affairs. But I was looking through the file and thinking, wow, this is a great idea, but they've executed it really badly. And it kind of planted a seed. And so I started thinking about how I would do that business and how it could be so much better. And so it kind of planted a seed which grew. And I think that's quite interesting in business, because we have lots of ideas for business, but it's quite nice when one actually takes root and really starts to grow to the point where you're thinking about it a lot. And quite fortunately at the time, because I'd moved back to London and I'd rented out the flat that I owned, so I moved in with a friend of mine who was like a creative writer for the creative company Imagination, and we had great fun. And I had great fun living there, staying there. And he lived on this sort of in this warehouse apartment on the River Thames. And one night, in fact, it was the 4th of July, because I remember it really well. I got back home from work, and because I told him all about this idea and this concept, and he'd come back from his work, and he'd researched all these names that I could call the business, like things like Wishing Well and Dreams Come True. And in the list was Red Letter Days. And I thought, wow, that's it. And it was like the instant. And I think with branding, if it's an instant heart, yes, wow, perfect. It's like, you don't even have to think about it. It's And then fireworks were going off over Tower Bridge in the distance. And then,
we're having a party for Rachel.
I know, and it was a really good omen. And then the next day, because obviously this was back in 1989, so way before, not just before the internet, kind of before mobile phones, I went down to the city and went to a company formation agent, and that was the day that I created the company.
Wow.
On the 5th of July, 89. So that was the story, yeah.
And then, and you were 24, did you say at that time?
Yeah, 24.
Okay. So now we're going to move to Rachel at 35. So by Rachel at 35, what were you doing then? What had happened?
So by 35, Red Letter Days was really in the ascendancy. And we were, what year would that have been? About 2000. Hold on. Oh gosh, I've got to think. 35. So that is 1999, right?
Mm-hmm.
Very roughly.
Roughly 99 or 2000.
Yeah. So that was, Red Letter Days was really starting to take root by that point, and we were making £1 million profit a year. Profit, not turnover. So it was a 10 million turnover business, and we were making £1 million, and we really were starting to get into big growth. It was quite difficult towards the end of the 90s, because my mother died suddenly in 1997, and then my father kind of wasted away and had stroke after stroke, and eventually died in 1999. So it was all kind of, it was quite a tricky time for me, and it really was a sort of coming of age, because I think when both your parents die, it's kind of like you kind of feel you're on your own. But I'd obviously built this business, and I was single at that point. Actually, I was a single mum. So how
many children did you have at that point?
I just had my second son.
Because you have 5 boys, don't you?
Yes, I have 5 boys. So I just had my second son. I was a single mum, but I felt very strong and powerful and independent, because I had this big business. I had loads of money. I could afford to pay for help and nannies and childminders, and I had where was I living? I was living in quite a nice big house in Friern Barnet in London. Or Brian Barnett.
Next to Mrs. Bouquet, no doubt.
Yeah. So
okay, now I know that this story is quite extraordinary from there, and we're not going to do that today, because people can read about your story, and I'm sure that some people will be able to buy your book to read what happened from that point onwards. So what I'm interested in now is really just some kind of light-hearted responses. So I'm looking for responses from your heart, and I'm just looking for some one-word answers, really.
Is this like some kind of Freudian
lighten the mood? No.
Session?
No, not at all. Not at all. So just what resonates you. I'm going to give you some very quick answers. It's very easy to do. Okay, so this is the first one. Fiction or non-fiction?
Non-fiction.
TV or radio?
TV.
Best habit?
Green juicing.
Worst habit?
I think I've got rid of all my worst habits. Not being focused enough these days, I would say.
Okay. And what do you do to relax?
I would say stillness, absolute stillness. I do a lot of lying on the earth.
Yes, lying in your garden. I know you do that.
Sky bathing.
Yeah.
Just lying on the earth. Yeah.
Connecting with the earth. Is the earth what is your element? Are you an earth person? I'm an earth. I'm in number 3. I'm an earth. What are you?
Well, it depends what system.
Yeah, it does depend what system, I suppose.
Because I'm a wood dragon.
Yeah, so I'm
Chinese astrology.
Yeah.
In 9-star key, I'm a 9, so I'm fire.
Right.
And in Western astrology, I'm Sagittarius, so
Right.
that's fire. So
That's
wood
fire,
and fire is a kind of my. But I have a lot in my astrology. I have a lot of water and earth as well. So, yeah.
And okay, so do you have any nicknames or pet names?
When I was a teenager, I was a punk girl, and my punk name was Toad.
Toad. Actually, that's the question I didn't ask you. What were you listening to at 18? Were you listening to punk at 18 then?
Punk was a bit before I was 18. So when I was probably about, punk happened when I was about 15.
Yeah.
14, 15, I guess.
Okay. So what was happening?
The late 1970s. So by the time I was 18 was kind of Live Aid was about then, wasn't it?
Was it?
That was about Live Aid, I think. Yeah, about 1992. 82.
So it's sort of the new because punk was taken over with the new romantics. It was Adam and the Ants and all that kind of thing.
Yeah, yes, it was. Madonna had just come on the scene, hadn't she then, I think. Yeah. All that kind of 80s stuff.
Okay, now you know that I sing anyway. So if I was to be on stage and I dragged you or invited you up onto the stage to sing with me, what would your karaoke song be?
Karaoke song?
What would you choose?
Well, my classic karaoke, if you look on YouTube, is actually Dancing Queen.
Ah, we've got that.
Yes, but I don't think I'd pick that one again. I think I'd pick, what would I pick? Gosh. What would I pick? I think something Bette Midler or something like that.
Okay. Maybe
like Wind Beneath My Wings or something.
Very appropriate. Very appropriate. And Marina will tell you why when we speak to her later. Okay, all right. So another scenario for you then. I'm going to send you away on holiday this time. You're not in a lift. You're going away on holiday. And everything is taken care of. So the hotels and the flights and everything. So basically it's going to be really stress-free. You can go wherever you want and, it doesn't really matter. But I'd like you to share with us who you would take with you for that month's holiday that you could spend a month with without a crossword.
So I'm not taking my children.
You can take anybody you like, but only one person.
Oh, only one person.
Yeah, somebody you could spend a month with without a crossword.
Well, definitely my business partner, Kevin Stein. That would be quite nice because he's on the other side of the planet, so he's
in America, isn't he? He's in.
Yeah. So it's it would be quite nice to spend a month with him. And I definitely think, because I know him really, really well. He's probably the person that knows me best on the planet, I would say, bizarrely. So definitely, yes. The other person who I think would be really good and interesting to spend a month with, and that's Davina.
Yes.
I mean, I love her energy. I can imagine that would be just fascinating to spend a month with her.
Yes, I'm hoping to interview Davina, so it'll be interesting to see whether she reciprocates.
I think I would drive her up the wall if I spent a month with her. But
okay, and if you ever feel a little bit kind of needing in some energy, or feeling a little bit low, what would be a music track that you would choose to lighten your heart? We're going to actually make a playlist of the music, and we're probably going to create a new radio show with a little snippet of whatever track you choose. So what would you play? Oh, I'm feeling a little bit, I need a bit more to be a bit more light-hearted. What would you choose?
I would, well, number one, straight off the bat, is the soundtrack of La La Land.
Oh, of course, because you're a La La Land loopy lady, aren't you?
Oh, I mean, I just
how many times did you see it?
Well, I just realised it's out on DVD, and so I've just downloaded it from Amazon Prime. So I'm watching it. I've watched it like 3-4 times already. But I mean, I went to the cinema and saw it 3 or 4 times. I love musicals, so that is an instant.
Do you play any instruments?
Yes, I've also bought the Easy Piano soundtrack. So I'm learning how to play some of the main songs. But apart from that, I really must mention an amazing song, which is by Deva Premal, which is Yemeya Asesu, which is a absolutely beautiful piece of, what would you call it, devotional music, which is just, I mean, it's just nectar for the heart.
Well, that would be lovely to have that on the playlist. That would be something quite different, I'm guessing.
Yeah, that is incredible.
And you probably would struggle to choose which La La Land track I would let you have, because you're only allowed to have one.
Yeah, I think that would be a great one, because that's one that anyone can listen to that and feel their soul soar. It's a very, very, very powerful song. Yeah.
Okay. All right, and now we get to the heart of the matter, because as you know, well, you know all about me, is that my passion is health and helping people to find happiness and looking after their heart. So not only the one that is inside you that beats 350 million times in your lifetime, but also the heart that you have to give to the world. And you very kindly have wrote me a lovely testimony for the back of my book. Thank you very much. So my question now is both the physical and also that sort of spiritual side. What do you do to look after your heart?
Wow, I mean, my whole life actually is devoted to alignment, I have to say, and I kind of know that from all of the transformational work that I've done. This is the whole game of life, is really coming out of duality into the heart and being in that vertical alignment. And so I really do, work is not the right word, but I really spend so much time making sure I'm in alignment. And so green juicing and eating really purely. And if I feel I'm pulled out, things like just going and lying on the earth and aligning and sky bathing and meditation, yoga. And I absolutely, lots of water. I mean, to the extent now where the universe actually wakes me up during the night and says, drink water, we're losing connection with you. And I have very vivid dreams, and I just know the power of all these things. And you see, this is the thing, Jill, is that with the work that I'm doing with Source, it is so much about being connected that actually, and most people think, oh, it's a bit of a waste of time and I don't have time to do all this stuff. If I don't do these things, if I neglect them, I literally know that I've lost connection. It's a bit like your mobile phone losing its full signal. And I can't work as powerfully if I haven't got that full intuition. So it's something that it almost is like my obsession now. And I can really easily notice when I lose that connection. I mean, for example, you know, I used to drink quite a lot of wine. I never drank any spirits, but wine was my one weakness. And if I were to drink a glass of wine now, I could literally feel myself unhooking from connection, literally like unhook and lose that connection. It's that powerful now.
And I think, you know, what's been interesting in working with you is that if I'd have heard you say that a year ago, I really wouldn't have understood what you meant by being in alignment. I would have kind of gone, oh, you know, that's woo-woo stuff. I you know, that sounds all a bit weird. But actually, as my journey has gone on, and I've, even from when I wrote my book, you know, things have progressed for me in terms of understanding how important, from a health perspective, particularly because obviously that's a lot of my focus, but not only from my own health, but for other people too, is helping them to see that this alignment is so important, and, you know, trying to stop that resistance, trying to understand how going into the heart is, and rather than being in your head, is just the most important thing that you can do, to allow your body to do and to work in the fantastic way that it will.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is just like really feeling in, and that's what Bruce Lee was saying about don't think, feel.
Yeah.
Because in any situation, if we can really drop down into what am I feeling, what's this bringing up for me, why am I feeling shitty, or what's going on, and just getting really conscious of what you're feeling. I mean, I'm doing a lot of work at the moment with trauma healing therapy. I'm on a program with Juliet Yelverton learning about trauma healing, and in particular the adrenaline response, and that's a very fascinating thing to observe in myself and in others, about when people go into adrenaline response, how to recognize it and how to come back into that alignment, because that is the one thing, adrenaline response, that really pulls us out of the heart into the head, into this fight flight duality realm.
Yes.
Even to the extent, just now my son just popped by after school. He's only 11 and he's doing exams, and he literally came in, he's like, Mum, we did the exam, and and I just put my hand on his heart, and I just held him, and I just said, darling, you're in the adrenaline response, calm down, breathe, just give me a hug and just slow down, you know, and just to bring him back into, out of that fight flight. And that is what our society has us in, the adrenaline response, because we're dramatically weakened. So this whole thing around, you know, the whole thing that's happened in Manchester, you can see everyone's in this fight, flight, freeze, anger, reaction, response, and it's being fed. You know, I don't want to get too political, but it's really interesting how it's all being fed. Suddenly they say, oh, you know, we're going to put all the army on the streets and like military police. It's all to trigger people's adrenaline response, because in that place we're disempowered. I hate to say it, but it's very fascinating. What, you know, from a health point of view, what society, how society is set up to pull us out of that alignment, because we are all powerful when we're in that heart alignment with the vertical axis mundi, as Davina calls it. Yeah.
And I've spent kind of the last couple of days talking to well, one man and but women mostly, and women who are like you, who are creating that, back to that kind of looking at how, as women particularly, we have such a role to play in helping the world to come back to source, as you call it, or into alignment. And there's this whole collaboration that's going on. We've talked about this before, haven't we, with these little pockets of people like you and like Marina and like Anita that I spoke to this morning, and Marion and Cheryl and Mo and all those other people, that all these women that are channeling all of this lovely, actually, this is where we want to be, this is where we need to be, this is really what's important.
Yeah. But some amazing men doing it too. I mean, let's not neglect, and in a lot of the shamanic circles particularly, they are 50-50.
Are they?
Very unusual for mind, body, spirit, because most places you go, like if you go to the Hay House conference or an Abraham Hicks event, it's kind of 90% women, 10% men. Whereas at shamanic events, it's 50-50. And some of the men now that are coming through are so enlightened and they're so in their evolved masculine. It's beautiful. It's so beautiful. So I think this shift, in this evolutionary shift into alignment, which is coming into the center, it's not going from masculine into feminine, from patriarchy to matriarchy. It's totally coming into that center place where there is no, in that center place, you're coming out of duality into unity consciousness, which isn't about masculine, feminine. It's about total balance and you know, both coming together, and that's really beautiful. Yes.
I think it's lovely that, you know, it's what's wonderful for me is seeing this kind of journey that women that I admire and men that I admire, and that there's always somewhere else to go. There's always something new to learn. There's another stage of growth, personal growth, but in this spiritual world, which is very, very new to me, for example. And perhaps other people are thinking, well, you know, that's not really something that I'm interested in. But actually, when you begin to just dip your toe in and understand the power of it, and then tune into yourself and understand the benefits that you can have, and then what happens is people begin to see it in you too. People begin to notice the change in you, and you just feel happier with yourself. And that's, you know, feeling at peace and happy is really where we want to be, isn't it?
Yes, true. I mean, I'm hesitant there because there's a caveat to that, in that when you take the red pill, if you want to put it in those terms, when you take the red pill, it's kind of like you're stepping out of almost like a blissful ignorance into really having to do the work. And there's a big kind of temptation in going to this world of spirituality to only want the kind of fluffy, lovely, full connection to source bliss. But actually what happens is that as you start doing this work, you really start opening up into the deep healing. And I think that's really, really important. And I have to say, I mean, I still, just as you think, just as I think, you know, there can't be any more for me to do. And you know, just another whole reveal comes round. And you get to realize that actually it's like anything you see out there in the world that you don't like, or kind of feel like that needs to be sorted, always leads home. It always leads back to yourself, of like, where am I, whatever I'm seeing out there, what is in me that it's showing that I need to look at, places that I haven't investigated yet. And that's really hard work, in the sense of taking that on board, because it's so easy to think the problem is out there with the world.
I was really quite floored the first time you said that to me. You know, it is a major shift. And there was you know, it's been a very long period of reflection for me, that I feel now that I'm kind of moving out of, you know, with your help and other people that I'm working with. So you, as you say, you have to be prepared to, it's not all fluffy world. You have to be prepared to do the work, as you say.
Yeah, everything truly is a co-creation. And this is the thing, particularly more shamanic work that I do, I've really got that, is that every single thing is a co-creation. And really taking that on board. You know, even in mentoring and coaching, it's like, what does this person come to show me? Even when I'm mentoring a new client, it's like, why have they turned up? What are they here to show me? What's their gift for me? What is it that, you know, where are we going to go with this? And life starts to become really fascinating when everything that presents, you start to get really curious about. Like, why did that happen? And why? Because nothing is random. There is nothing random in this universe. Everything is very precise. And Source is speaking to us the whole time, in every detail of everything. It's quite fascinating, actually.
It is indeed. And I think if you're new to the law of attraction and all the things that we're talking about, it's definitely worth exploring. It's definitely worth having an open mind.
Yeah, for sure.
In my experience. Okay, so just a couple of questions to finish. Thank you for sharing so openly with us. What's coming up for you at the moment that you're really excited about? So what's happening And this is business now. So what's happening in your world that you can share with us that you'd like to?
Oh, wow. So many things. I've just come back from the business show last week, which was my first toe back into the old paradigm business world.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really interesting because as a result of that, I've opened into a lot more what I call mainstream mentoring. So it's quite interesting to be going back into that more mainstream world. And I get that I'm being drawn there. I'm doing a big project with Juliet in Glastonbury at the Healing Waters Sanctuary, and I'm going down there for a planning meeting tomorrow. So that's really interesting. And I'm off to Chelsea Flower Show on Friday.
Oh, yes, you are, with Fiona.
With Fiona, which is again really interesting because I didn't realize at the time when she suggested it. I thought, oh, that sounds like a good idea. I haven't been there for years. And I realized that there was a huge healing for me around Chelsea Flower Show and the RHS, because that was one of our biggest experiences in the Red Letter Days era. And when the business crashed, they were one of our creditors. And I felt a huge amount of kind of guilt and shame that we hadn't paid them. And I wasn't able to pay them. And I know it would have been because I think they're pretty much a charitable foundation. So that's really interesting to be going back there to sort of heal that kind of old wound, so to speak. So that's fascinating how the universe works to send us these situations, because as I said, just when we think we've cleared through stuff, up comes something to say, what about me?
Yeah.
So yeah, that would be.
And you also support people on your SourceTV platform who want to have a bit more profile and be able to share their expertise and so on, don't you?
Yeah, we've just gone live today. We started promoting Chrysula. I don't know if you're interviewing Chrysula Sirigu, and
I am next week.
she's got her new program, Golden Keys to Prosperity, which is quite an interesting one. It's a 21-day program, which is like a documentary almost, because she's interviewed lots of prosperity coaches and teachers.
Including me.
Oh, yes, you're part of it. Yeah, of course. And so, yeah, there's a whole 21 really fascinating selection of things like meditations and interviews. And so it's a whole kind of journey into the world of prosperity. So that's just gone live. So, yeah, lots of interesting stuff happening.
Okay, so Rachel, can you tell everybody then how they connect with you? Where do they find you? Do you have websites? Do you have a Facebook page? How do people get a hold of you?
Yeah, so I'm very active on Facebook and Twitter under my name, Rachel Elnaugh. And you can also see my website, rachelelnaugh.com. And everything about SourceTV is at source.tv. That is the website, source.tv. So that's our kind of portal for all of our content. Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much. I hope you've enjoyed our light-hearted conversation.
Yes, I have, Jill. Thank you for inviting me.
You're very welcome. And I hope that you'll be part of our ongoing project that we've got planned, which I'll talk to you about in just a little minute. And thank you very much for joining us. Thank you for being patient. And please make sure, everybody, that you connect with Rachel through all those various different portals. She's a big, important influence in me and my life. So thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye for now.
Bye.